The steeper path, the climb I choose, leaving comfort, nothing to lose. Through shadow trails and rocky ground, my purpose clear, my meaning found. Each step I take brings strength anew. Challenges faced, resilience grew. A journey tough, but richly sweet, where soul and life's alignment meet. At peaks ahead, the vision clear, my greatest goals becoming near. The steeper path, though hard and slow, is where my truest self will grow. The steeper path.
Share with me or tell me a little bit about where you started and how you ended up where you are today.
Yeah, still figuring it out.
I get it.
I feel a little sad that I don't have a huge memory from my childhood earlier than really 13. My nan remembers being in a crib, and it just blows my mind. But beyond sort of 13, I actually struggle to remember too much of it. There's patches, of course, but I came from a very middle class, happy family. We had a beautiful house in the country, and really that's where my memory is strongest and fondest, of just spending days and days outside building mudslides and tree houses and mud pies and all of that good stuff. And I think if I reflect back on what I can learn from my childhood is that I had a big imagination. I was the youngest of three, and my brother was 4 years older. My sister was 6 years older. So I spent a lot of time on my own. I spent a lot of time in imagination, in a fantasy world, and I also spent a lot of time building things. I remember my mum was a dog teacher, a dog trainer. And one year we were watching Crufts, the sort of famous dog show. There's this one competition in it where the dog runs up to this contraption, presses the button, and out, the contraption throws a ball, the dog catches it and brings it back. And I remember watching it going, well, I could build that for you, Mum. And I kind of reverse engineered this contraption and designed this thing that threw a ball to the dog that pressed the button. And my mum took it to her dog training club, and it was quite a success. And the reason why I'm sharing that is I think our childhood does leave clues. And, for most of my life, if I look at the majority of my life, I was pretty lost pretty chasing other people's versions of success, what I thought I should do. And if I look at my life now, I've never felt so aligned, never felt so in flow. And I'm kind of doing all the things that I did as a child, building stuff, creating stuff.
Wow.
I also was always a leader at school. I captained my rugby team, and I was head of my house. And the thing that I enjoyed the most of that is inspiring others. I remember writing a personalized program for every player in my rugby team, and having these one-on-one talks and motivational talks with each of them, and really trying to understand their human psyche, what drives them. Are they someone who needs the carrot, or are they someone who needs the stick? And again, I felt most alive when doing that. And if I look at my life now, that is what I'm doing. I'm leading, I'm inspiring, I'm getting the best out of people and awakening people whilst creating products. So it all makes sense now, but of course it took some time to get here.
To get there. Yeah. When you were a kid, where did you grow up? You mentioned it was in the countryside. Where?
Yeah, down in Sussex, the southeast of England. Yeah.
And it was, I've been to Sussex, but for people who haven't, what's it like there? It's countryside.
It's pretty idyllic. It's the classic rolling hills, country pubs. It's pretty idyllic England countryside.
So you got to spend a lot of time outside and a lot of time just being in the world.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's super cool. When you were a kid, what did you think you wanted to be when you grew up?
I was obsessed with rugby. You know, that was my obsession, rugby. I remember carrying a rugby ball absolutely everywhere I went. I slept with a rugby ball. I always had a rugby ball in my hand. And the idea was, you know, if I just get used to having a rugby ball in my hand, my handling skills are going to be the best. So it was always rugby. Yeah. Rugby. And the thing that I moved through a lot of when I was younger was this. I've got this deep wounding that I'm lazy, and that really I'm lazy. And I remember my brother, and I thank him for this, but also it was a really hard thing for me at the time. If I reflect back on it, my brother was fit and healthy and always energized and active. And I think I'm kind of lazy at heart. If left to my own devices, I could slob out. You know, I could just, smong on a sofa. And I remember my brother saying to me, Joel, come on, let's go for a run. And I so wanted to go for a run because I knew I wanted to, but I didn't like it coming from someone else, and I was a very stubborn boy and I'm a very stubborn guy. So I remember saying, no, I'm fine. I don't want to go for a run. I'm fine on the sofa. And of course he would go for the run and it would eat me up as he would be out on the run. And eventually I'd get up and I'd go for my run, but it had to be on my terms. And yeah, I think that stubbornness, the sort of rebellion to being told what to do, but then also a deeper stubbornness of, well, I'm just going to prove you wrong.
Yeah, I can kind of relate to that too. Did that stubbornnness and rugby go together? I'm very curious about how rugby and nature came together because it just sounds like an interesting tension.
Yeah, I mean, my nickname at school was the Machine. I would stay behind every training to make myself to make myself sick. I'd train so hard that I was often sick and I would collapse. And I don't know where that came from. And I'm actually still trying to figure this out right now. What's real and what's performance? What's real and what's proving? It was interesting. I went to the gym 4 weeks ago and it was just me and this other guy and we were doing this class. And the workout was a pretty tough workout, the rowing machine. And he, just before we got into the rowing machine, he was like, fuck, I've got to go against this animal. And I loved it, but also hated it. Because in that moment, I was like, well, I've now got an expectation that I've got to meet. At least in my mind, I had to meet. And I remember that workout being one that I wanted to take it easy. And I often have this, like going to a workout, going to a fitness class or a CrossFit gym and going, I'm going to take it easy today. And someone says, up against the beast or up against the machine or something like that. And it would create this expectation that I both love and I hate. And of course, in that workout, I absolutely beasted myself, fell off the rowing machine and collapsed and basically couldn't move for 30 minutes. And I'm still undecided, because I love this part of me, this stubbornness, this part of me that's willing to go beyond what most people are willing to do. But then there's part of me also that just wants to relax.
Yeah. It's like an internal tension that constantly pulls at you.
Totally. Totally.
Yeah. I can see that. I mean, I've not ever played rugby at the level you have, but the few times I've attempted to play it, and it's not really big in the States, but I played it with people from England and Australia when I decided to play it. I played ice hockey and I played lacrosse, which are two pretty full contact, fast moving sports as well. Mm-hmm. And I had a whole new level of pain when I decided to play rugby. Mm-hmm. I mean, it is such an intense, no pads, full body contact in every way, shape, or form. I've never gotten hurt so quickly and so often playing a single game. So I imagine you have to have that stubbornness to some degree, or that, grit and drive and lock in to just get in there and pile in with a bunch of guys and just beat each other to shit all day. I mean, it's an interesting sport for somebody who has that nature.
Right. Yeah. And I both love it and I hate it. I mean, I've had 12 operations. I've had a disc replaced in my neck, knee replacement, hip replacement. So part of me is, would I have done it again? But I took so much from my rugby days. friends that will, are more like brothers. I learned grit. I learned teamwork. I learned the power of determination. And I remember, I think it's similar in ice hockey. You have the one guy who'd kind of go in and cause the fights or finish the fights. And there was, I can't remember the name of what you'd call that, the guy, the goon or something like that. There's a program on Netflix all about them. But I kind of prided myself on being that guy. Whenever there was a penalty kick, I prided myself being the first person that would tackle the guy, like tackle whoever tapped and went. And the bigger it was, the more important it was for me to go first. And I took real pride of that, leading through action, leading from the front. And it's not easy being a leader. Like, it's really vulnerable. No. It's really hard. And I sometimes have these moments of, I don't want this. I don't want to be a leader. And I remember feeling that in rugby. I don't want to be this guy who leads from the front, but it felt so much bigger than me. Like it felt not a duty, but like it felt right. So it has served me, but not my body, I suppose.
Yeah, this is not a sport that people have a long career in, I imagine, just because of the severe amount of injuries that people go through. Yeah. That's interesting, the statement you made about leaders, this sort of tension between the privilege of leadership and the desire to lead. And that struck me in the moment, because I was thinking, well, actually, that's what makes good leaders, when there is that tension, because otherwise you're a malignant narcissist.
Right.
If you're not actually doubting yourself the entire time and dreading it to a degree, then, and you're just all about, this is what I'm born to do. Of course I'm the leader. Of course I'm the one who should be doing this. That's kind of slips into a sense of unhealthy ego, as opposed to leading from a very genuine and sincere place of character and reflection. I think looking at that, it may seem now, why did I do this to myself, or why did I want to be this guy? It actually makes sense. A great leader isn't somebody who wants to do it always.
Right.
Yeah. What did you learn from rugby, and how long did you play it for?
I mean, I played as early as I can remember, probably 8 years, and I finished, how old am I now? I probably finished in my 30s, or maybe late 20s. I finished early, and I was forced to hang up my boots on the back of, I was stretching off a pitch after a second neck operation, and I thought, okay, it's time. I also had a hip replacement, which meant no more rugby. And what I learned, teamwork, humility, grit, being a gentleman. They say football's a gentleman's sports played by yobs, and rugby's a yob sport played by gentlemen. And rugby truly taught me that, the ability to have 80 minutes wanting to knock someone's head off. And the moment the whistle goes, you drop all of that, you shake hands, you go to the bar and you sink some pints together. I can't think of many sports where that's real. So it really taught me, I suppose, this sort of mature, a healthy level of competition. I think their competition has kind of been removed a little bit from schools, and rightly so in some degrees, but I also think there's a real benefit, maturity, sort of a rites of passage that comes from healthy competition. And I think rugby really gave me that.
Yeah, I can see that nature that you described of, knocking each other's heads off and then going out for a pint together. That is kind of unusual. I mean, not every sport has that ethos.
Right.
Is that historical, or is that just something that kind of emerged over time with the sport?
I think it is historical. Yeah, I think it has that reputation. I think I have no idea where that's come from. It makes no sense. It really makes no sense. Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't, but it does. It's at the same time. I know a lot of sports are historically substitutes for warfare in interesting ways. Lacrosse, the sport that I played the most, is a Native American sport, and it was actually played to the death over a very large battlefield with human skulls originally. instead of a rubber ball as it's played today. And it was a form of warfare. It was the way disputes got settled. And so it was played, literally till the end. And it's interesting that sports have kind of over time in history played different roles as, anything from entertainment to civic pride to people fighting battles. And so it's very interesting. I'll have to learn more about rugby because I just don't know about the history of it all, where it started and how it got started. But,
do you know what I think? One thing that springs to mind, and I think you can't help but have respect for someone who we're all going through the same. We're all going through the pre-match nerves. We all have the resistance to tackling, to putting your head where it doesn't, where it hurts and it doesn't want to go. We have so much resistance to it. And I think there's such a mutual respect that arrives from that place. One of my favorite quotes, and I'm not going to try and repeat it, but it's the man in the arena. Unless you're in the arena getting your face kicked in, I'm not interested. And it's kind of like that. There's such a mutual respect when you are toe to toe with someone and they're willing to do the same. It's such a mutual, and I boxed as well for a while, and I felt always the same about my opponent. It's afterwards you hug and it's sort of this tip of the hat to each other. Yes, we wanted to, take each other's head off, but I see you, and they see me. There's such a mutual respect that comes from that.
Yeah, that's cool. I get it. So how did you take this all the way to the professional level or semi-pro, or did you have aspirations to be a pro? It ended a bit early, but...
Yeah, I always had aspirations. The closest I got was I was in the championship, was one below the premiership.
Wow.
And that was when I really thought I could have made it. And there were obviously scouts and chances to go pro on the back of that. I was paid enough to live on, but not to really thrive. And that was when I had my first neck operation. And if I'm really honest with myself, I didn't turn pro. One of my favorite books of all time is Stephen Pressfield's War of Art and Turning Pro.
Absolutely.
And I was an amateur trying to be pro. I didn't have pro habits. I didn't have a pro mindset. I wanted to be a pro. I chatted a great game. I said all the right things. But if you looked at my habits, I was still out partying. I was still out drinking. And in honesty, I was just really scared. So actually all of those things were resistance to my true calling. Yeah. And it was easy to blame the drinking, the partying on why I didn't make it. It's much harder. There's nothing to blame if you really commit to something. You commit to the habits and you commit to the mindset and then don't make it. Well, then who can I blame? And I didn't have that mindset at the time. I didn't have that knowledge or insight. So really, I just didn't turn pro before I was a pro.
Yeah, that's really interesting reflection. I love that book too for a lot of reasons. And you and I have talked about it in the past. And it made me think back to an interview I heard with Phil Jackson, the American basketball coach who coached the Lakers and the Bulls. And he was talking about, the difference between people like Kobe and Jordan and Dennis Rodman. And he told this story about the Olympic team. There was this one sort of super basketball American Olympic team that had, I think it was back in the early 2000s. It had pretty much every superstar basketball player on it at the time. And they went over to the games and everybody just, a good 95% of the team thought about this as a party, as an opportunity to just, hey, this isn't the pros anymore. We're just going to cut loose and have a good time out here at the Olympics. And everybody stayed out until 2 or 3 in the morning on the first night. And they walked into the majority of the team comes in kind of, drunk at 3 or 4 and walks through the lobby and the lift doors open up and out walks Kobe. And he's got his bag and his towel. And he was heading to the gym while they were going to bed. And the next day, the entire team looked at each other and just went, oh, shit, we're really in trouble. We're not here to win. Like, he's going to the gym when we're coming home drunk. And that mindset changed the whole dynamic of the team. Just that one thing of seeing somebody who lived that ethos of turning pro. And that story stuck with me as a distinction. I mean, it's easier to envision with athletes than with ourselves. But that mindset shift is a massive one.
Totally.
It's a massive mindset shift. Did you have a backup plan when you were thinking about your path? I mean, it sounds like you gave your all to rugby. You did everything you could. You poured yourself into it. You played your hardest, worked through injuries. What did you study in school, or what did you think would happen if it didn't work out?
I was drifting. I was really drifting. I remember when I was 16 or 17 having a career test, based on my psychometrics, and my recommendation was to become a golf course designer. And I did wonder how many golf courses were being built at the time. So I parked that, and then the second down was an engineer, a mechanical engineer. And I was offered 3 Cs from a top university, which, again, I was inherently lazy. So I just jumped at this opportunity that I could cruise through my last year, that I didn't need to get 3 As to get to this top university. I just needed 3 Cs, which was a regret, if I'm honest, because I did actually have a real passion for product and design. And the other university I wanted to go to was Bath, and to do product engineering. But instead, I took the 3 Cs, ended up getting 3 As, and went to Bristol University to study mechanical engineering. And really, through no desire to become a mechanical engineer, just, hey, 3 Cs, I'm good at maths and physics, feels like the right thing to do. And, still with this desire to play professional rugby. Bristol had a good rugby team. And so I kind of followed that path for a while. And then after 3 years of mechanical engineering, I knew it wasn't going to be my path. I went to a university which allowed me to play this sort of semi-professional and study property. And the year that I decided I wasn't going to make it as a pro, I kind of had to make a decision. And I think it was 2006 when the markets were booming, times were good. And I remember speaking to my brother, who's 4 years older, and saying, hey, what do your friends do? And he said, look, just go to property. They drink loads, they make lots of money. And that sounded great to me. I was still very much distracted by partying and booze. And so really I was just reacting to life, and stepped into the world of property with no real plan, vision, desire. Just rugby wasn't going to happen anymore. Property it is, with the goal of, this is where I can make money and drink lots.
Sounds like the first step on the clearer path to lesser goals.
Right.
Yeah. Interesting. So how long did that last when you took that step down that road, and what did you learn about yourself during that time?
I was on that path for probably 7 years. So I worked in London in property for 4 years, and really chasing money, chasing comfort. And I got really distracted by all of those things, distracted by, what everyone else was pursuing. And I always had this desire to travel and to experience the world. So I put my hand up to move to Singapore. So I moved to Singapore for a while. And then I visited Jakarta in Indonesia. And for some reason, because I don't know if you've been to Jakarta, but it's not a place you want to live or visit. But the moment I arrived in Jakarta, I knew I had to be there. So I put my hand up to start a capital markets team in Jakarta in Indonesia, which I stepped into. I did that for a year, realized I either commit to this and completely lose my soul, because I could see where that expat life in Jakarta leads you. I had, friends there who've been there 10 years, and I just looked at them and I was like, I really don't want to become that. So I was sort of headhunted for a job in Dubai, chasing money still, chasing the traditional form of success, and got very good at it. I made really good money in Dubai, which I was there for about 2.5 years. Bought a Ford Mustang, was the best partier around, the man who would stay up longest and buy all the drinks and, everything else under the sun. And I really lost myself in that for a while. I didn't know it at the time. And I think if I look back on it, it's what I realized in that journey is that it takes finding yourself to realize how lost you were. I didn't realize I was lost. On the surface, on paper, I had it all. Right. That's the traditional story.
Yep.
Lots of money, the car, great at partying, all of those things. But I felt just vacuous and empty inside. And I normalized all these things that we do, like talking about the Sunday scaries and the Monday blues and all these phrases, which we don't stop and pause and go, hey, is this normal to hate life? Is this normal to dread Monday morning? Yeah. Is this normal? Like we would joke in WhatsApp groups saying, oh, who's going to penguin dive off the roof today? It's, okay, I get it, but no. But I didn't stop to question those things. Instead, I just normalized it all and moved through life. And so that was about 7 or 8 years. And then I got a really lucky break, which kind of was the catalyst to me living now what I truly believe is what I'm here to do.
Tell me about that. What was the break?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a conscious one. It was purely luck. It was interesting. I had a house under offer, and it would have been a beautiful house, exposed brick walls, single guy, you know, and my mortgage was rejected because I was buying through Dubai and all that kind of stuff. So there was like some discrepancies with my tax and all these kinds of things. So my mortgage was rejected. And at the time, I had this idea for a food tech business. I started to get into nutrition, and I was opening up Shake Shack in London, a restaurant chain in London. So I was eating out all on the time. And I had this idea of, what about an app that, you know, finds healthy meals nearby tailored to your nutritional needs? And this idea kind of felt like it had juice, and I felt like I had passion. So I had all this money that was going to go to the deposit of this house, rejected. I thought, do you know what? I'm going to give this a go. I read the book, How to Build a $1 Billion App. And I really was like, I could become a billionaire in years. And I read this book, and I took every single action from the book, ticking all these boxes off, you know, waiting for the billions to come the moment I launched the app. And of course, it didn't come, but that was the break, because if I didn't have my mortgage rejected, I'd be on that path of keeping up with the Joneses, bigger house, bigger mortgage, locked in by these sort of golden gates. But instead, I put that money towards a business that ended up being wiped out by COVID. It was 4 years I put into that business. I raised £1 million. I took it to seven-figure valuation. But really what that did for me was it introduced me to reading. And that was the catalyst, reading and realizing I have agency. And that was the seed that changed it all for me.
What sort of reading?
The first book was The One Thing. The book, The One Thing by Gary Keller. I actually had a breakdown on a tube outside Sloane Square. And for 2 weeks, I couldn't stop crying. I was an emotional wreck. And I remember thinking at the time, the amount of work that I have is not going to change. I'm always going to have too much. So I've got to change the way I approach work. So I really dived into productivity. And the first book that I found, I can't remember who recommended it or where I came across it, but it was The One Thing. And it was, I just devoured it. And I realized the power of focus. And I devoured every single productivity, personal development book there was. Brendan Burchard, you kind of name it, I read it. I went on a self-development binge, essentially.
That's pretty cool. So that started in motion a shift, it sounds like, in you from just, you know, you had this lucky break that allowed you to redirect your trajectory in a way without consciously or deliberately doing so. But the universe kind of threw you a curveball. You caught the curveball, and you turned it into something new, which was entrepreneurship and building something of your own. And I'm trying to understand, where did the reading come? What about being an entrepreneur or about building this business enabled that shift to reading and to growth?
Yeah, the first book, Building a $1 Billion App, just blew my mind.
Yeah.
You know, it felt like just a playbook to freedom. and I didn't have the words for it at the time, but I was so excited by this idea of, I mean, it really was the money. It was this idea of becoming a billionaire,
Yeah.
but what that would give me, the freedom, the success, all those things. But it really was this activation inside of me that I can create my own reality. I have agency, and this switch from really living by default to living by design, and really starting to understand that, I can control my life. Like, I'm not a passenger, I'm actually the driver here. And I think so much of my success, my happiness, my enjoyment, I owe to the teachers, the authors that, wrote books. I think book reading is, I owe so much to reading.
Yeah.
So much.
I totally understand it. You weren't a reader before. This wasn't something that was a regular practice for you. It just, somebody gave you the book and it kind of clicked for you.
Yeah. I actually really struggled reading.
Yeah.
I think the first book, and if someone asked me top 5 books, I will say this. My first book that really got me into reading was Harry Potter. And I remember reading it in my 20s and then devouring the whole series and then realizing why people read. Until that point, I just didn't get reading. My mum devours books. I'm like, it's such a waste of time. I can't think of anything better, few things better now to read. But yeah, Harry Potter was the first.
That's really cool. Yeah, I think it's funny because reading is one of these things that either it clicks with you or it doesn't, but usually your first introduction to it is through school. And oftentimes it's, here, read this thing that we want you to read. It doesn't always have relevance. It doesn't always have timeliness. It's here, have, Shakespeare or Wordsworth or, whatever it is that they give you in English literature class. It doesn't necessarily have relevancy in your life at the moment. And so reading can feel like a chore.
Totally.
And, I personally can relate because I always felt I love learning, but I didn't know that I loved learning because I didn't love school. Because the way learning was approached in school was, do this thing because we say so, memorize it and regurgitate it. It wasn't necessarily internalize it or find what's relevant to you. And I've seen this shift happen with so many people, especially people who don't consider themselves academically inclined or book nerds or whatever. I mean, I have quite a few friends who were really into fitness and physicality and sports and everything, who at some point in time just were like, okay, I've already lifted all the weights I can lift. I've already run all the laps I can run. I'm not growing anymore. Maybe I should work on my head. And the books are where it starts. And so it sounds like a very similar shift where like suddenly you had achieved so many things with your own life and trajectory that the book was the new gym that cracked open a new aspect of you.
Yeah, I can really resonate with that. And I never saw myself as book smart. I think what a teacher once essentially said I was stupid, not one with words, and should stick to maths and physics. So I have really had to work through words and reading. And I still, reading, it doesn't come natural to me. If I read to my daughter, it's a little sticky. And I listen to my wife reading to my daughter, I'm like, wow, there's a real difference. So it's a practice. It's something that I'm really learning and improving.
Yeah. That makes sense. Those narratives that people give us and how they shape our internal voice. When you said, people told me, teachers told me I was not good with words, or I should stick to my lane of maths and physics. I had the opposite. I was told the opposite, just stay away from math and stay away from science. You're just never going to do it. And as a result, I'm allergic to everything involving numbers. I absolutely am uninterested, scared of, resistant to anything involving numbers because that narrative got stuck in my head. And it's objectively not true. I actually, if I do step back and sort of ask myself, am I bad at this? Or was I just not as good as others at the time? That narrative sticking is kind of a thing that stays with us. I'm curious, how do you work through that now that you know who you are as an adult?
Well, I think the question that drives everything that I do is, who am I? So whilst I say I know who I am, I also have no idea. And for me, how I'm finding myself and discovering who I am is in the pursuit. It's in the journey and the reflection. And I'm still really discovering that. Like, I really don't know who I am. And that's the joy of it all.
Totally relate.
That's the joy of it all. Like, I know myself intimately, I know myself deeply, but I also don't. Because I truly believe we all have infinite potential, infinite possibility. And I believe there's a deeper, deeper calling within me, like a deeper dharma, a deeper purpose. And I think it's that pursuit that gives life real meaning. And whether I get there or not, it doesn't actually matter. It's in the pursuit that I just discover things and can see things and can understand myself. So I think there's nothing more important than that question of who am I? It's truly, it truly drives everything that I do.
Yeah, it's a great place to start. And it's not one we're encouraged to ask very often as kids, right? Especially when we're younger. I'm a big advocate for shifting that right now and getting more and more conversations in schools when people are younger to ask the question, who am I? Not just what do we want you to be? Yeah. So it's coming back to your story a bit, though. Sounds like you launched the food tech company 4 years into it. COVID happened, or somewhere in that 4 years that it was around. You mentioned it was there for 4 years. COVID happened, and then things changed. What happened from there?
So a book I read that, again, shifted a lot for me was a book called The Coaching Habit. And as soon as I read the book, The Coaching Habit, I knew it was how I wanted to lead my team. I had a small team at the time of, I think, 6 or 7, half freelancers, half full-time. And I was really struggling with leadership and bringing out the best in them. And I read that book and I realized, coaching is how I want to lead them. And I stumbled across a coaching event by Animas. And then I went to this event and it really opened my eyes to the coaching world. And I then did a coaching qualification called the Transformational Coach. And the moment I started coaching was this aha moment of, this is what I'm meant to do. This is why I'm here. Truly, this is what I'm meant to be doing with my life. But I still had the business at the time. I still had investors desiring a return. So whilst COVID wiping out my business broke me, it broke me emotionally, energetically, financially. It left me in a huge hole of debt. It was truly the best thing that could have happened to me because it was the nudge that I needed into coaching. And I really had no choice. I couldn't have got a job at the time. I was pretty much unemployable. And my wife was on maternity. So everything was on me. And I really had no choice but to make it a success. And that's necessity. I think necessity is a really powerful force. That necessity brought out the best in me. And I took responsibility for our family and I got to action and I created some clients and that was it. That's been me for the last 4 years and one hell of a journey, and one that's still going. But yeah, whilst it was the hardest thing that could have happened to me, it truly was the best.
Yeah, I can relate to a bunch of things in that story. I want to start with understanding what it was about coaching when you read that book for the first time and got introduced to the idea of working with or influencing or leading others through something other than command and control, top down, tell people what to do, how to do it. What was it about that shift that resonated or shifted in you that you felt like, I need to do something differently with my team? And what is coaching in your point of view? What did you learn from that?
I think it was the energy it gave me. I would consider myself following the path of the Tao Te Ching. And one of the verses in the Tao Te Ching says, serve the needs of others and all your needs will be met. And that's what coaching gives me. It's when I am in total service consciousness, when I'm fully present with another human with no agenda but to awaken their potential, to reflect back their own genius. The energy that comes from that, the aliveness, the sense of purpose, the meaning that it gives you, it's all I really was searching for. You know, if I look back prior to that point, I had no real meaning. I had no real sense of purpose. And I believe I'm here to serve. That's why I'm here. I'm a servant. I'm a loyal servant, and I'm here to serve. That sounds all very admirable, but it's actually the most selfish thing I can do. It's purely selfish.
I get it.
It's the great paradox. It's such a paradox, but it is selfish. By serving the needs of others, all my needs will be met. But that's not the reason to do it.
Right. Right. Yeah. It's paradoxical, but it's true.
Right.
Yeah. Coaching as serving and leadership as serving is definitely not the traditional way that leadership, management, or what executives are supposed to be or are supposed to do. And so when you embodied that shift inside of your team, I imagine you saw something in the power of this way of being in the world.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
It awakens, it's when we're so used to being told what to do, how to think, that in doing that, we just hand over our agency, we hand over our sovereignty, and we become a passenger. So the moment someone doesn't give you the answer, that doesn't tell you what to do, that doesn't try and fix you, I think it's truly one of the greatest gifts we can give someone is to witness, to see, to feel, to hear someone without any want of change, to not try and fix them, and yet to trust their own path, to trust that they know what's best for them. And it's true because I have no idea what's best for me. So why should I know what's best for someone else? And the agency, the energy, the empowerment. And that's why I'm here. I'm here to awaken others. That's my mission statement, is to awaken others.
I love that distinction. Yeah, the statement you just made, I have no idea what is the right thing for me. How am I going to know what's right for others?
Right.
That really hit home because this kind of speaks to the kicks in the ass that the universe gives us when we think we know what we need to do.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things in your story you were telling a few minutes ago that really was popping out for me is when we think we know what we need, sometimes something happens, a stick in the spoke of our bicycle is inserted by someone. I don't know what that is, but something happens that causes us to topple over the handlebars and land in the grass and hopefully not get hurt too badly in the process. And in those moments, it's like you have to listen. You have to respond. You're completely shaken by what's just happened, like in the case of your business falling apart. And I don't know if everybody has the presence of mind to get up and brush themselves off and say, why did this just happen to me? But if we do, there's usually a new window that's opening before us if we pay attention to it. And you did. You paid attention to it. And then the second thing that you said that I think is a really important lesson to pay attention to is constraints necessitating creativity. And sometimes those constraints are urgent and important. I have a wife expecting a baby. Sometimes those constraints are I'm running out of money. Sometimes those constraints are if I don't, lose weight, I'm going to have a heart attack, whatever it is. It's something there that is this constraint that drives us to step up. And so it's that unique combination of sort of the universe giving you a big shove or literally taking you over the handlebars and then seeing how to respond to constraint and to sort of rise to it. I think those are really important lessons. We're both coaches, and I'm sure we both have worked with a lot of people who fight and resist those messages, right? Hey, they feel victimized by going over the handlebars. They feel a sense of anger and resentment and want to go back to where they were and resist it. Did you ever feel the tendency or the desire to do so? Or was this one like, I'm in, I see what I need to do?
I mean, I'm human.
Yeah.
My ego always thinks it's victimized, wrong. So my immediate reaction is always that. Why me? Why now? Why is this happening to me? Can't I just get a break? You know, I put so much effort into this, and that's okay. That's natural. So of course I react immediately, but I have developed the presence of mind to understand that's not me. That's not my truest essence. And a quote that I remember reading that really frustrated me at the time, because I'm a forward focused man. Like I'm always moving and in action. I never got reflection. I never understood people who reflected and journaled and sat with things. And it really annoyed me. And I read this quote that said, reflection is the school of wisdom. And it landed with me. And when I reflect back, I can see all the dots connect.
Yes.
And every single failure was an opening to something. The failure of my first business was an opening to something. I broke my wrist 3 weeks ago. Incredibly frustrating, because I'm in this real great place with my physique and health, and I'm really aligned there. Then I break my wrist. Immediate reaction. Why now? Why me?
Yeah.
And kept on letting that go, like feeling the anger, but then eventually letting it go and surrendering. And it led me to a book called When Things Fall Apart by Pema Chodron, which is one of my favorites of all time. And the synchronicities of reading that book are beyond what the mind can grapple with. It was exactly the book that I needed. I've gifted it to 4 people in the last 3 weeks, because I knew there was one sentence in that book that they all need to read. And with all of these experiences now, I'm just learning at just a deeper level of trust and surrender and divine timing. And the challenge is in the wait. Like I believe the work is in the wait. The work is in the patience. Lao Tzu says the 3 wonders of the world are patience, humility, and compassion. And humility and patience are 2 qualities that I've really had to work with. And I can understand. He's a wise man, that Lao Tzu.
Inconceivably wise.
Right.
When you look back at, this book was written 3,000 years ago.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. Wow. That moment of just learning to lean into, this is what's calling me. This is what I need to push myself forward into. Or even just, maybe it wasn't so conscious. Maybe it was just, fuck it. This is what I've got to deal, what I can do right now. I'm going to give it a shot and see how it goes. That led you down a path that's radically different from where you started. I mean, can't think of anything. Well, I won't. Maybe that's not even a true statement, but I was going to say anything that's more different than playing rugby than being a coach. But I'm sure there's a lot of parallels now. But you stepped into that, and did you step into it as a business coach or as a you've just come out of building a startup? Did you want to coach entrepreneurs? What were the topics or the places that you went into, and what did you think you would do as a coach? The types of people you thought you might work with, or the types of problems you wanted to help people with?
That's the benefit that I had that came with this necessity that I needed to put food on the table. I didn't have time to overthink. I didn't have time to think about my niche and my messaging.
Yeah.
I just got out and served. I got out and started conversations, and I started coaching. And I didn't have the privilege, I suppose. That's not the right word, but I didn't have the opportunity to overthink. And so I didn't have any of those thoughts. I just needed to put money on the table and food on the table. So I just created clients. So I worked with entrepreneurs. I worked with someone writing a book. I worked with someone who helped someone come out to his parents, relationship, health. I did everything and anything, but I just got into service because that is what my family needed. And I think I learned in that just responsibility and duty, and the king archetype of providing for his family. It was what was needed. So I suppose it was a benefit of that necessity.
Yeah. It sounds like you just fully embodied the service mentality and stepped into it and then just started to serve, and whatever showed up, that's what you served.
Right. And there was, I'm not saying this in any way, oh, look how good I am or great I am. It was just needed. It
was needed.
And that's what necessity does for you. It just puts you in a state of service.
Yeah. It's very clarifying. It's very immediate.
Totally.
And it strips away a lot of non-essential thought and narratives and rumination.
Right.
Yeah. So how did it go? Did you manage to make a living? Did you manage to build something?
Yeah, so I figured it out with a lot of scrambling and a lot of making offers and actions and, betting big on myself. I was bold I made some really bold moves, but I made 6 figures in my first year and was set to double that in my second year, which, I'm super proud of being able to achieve that, and many pivots, but eventually got to serving men. And I was known for helping men wake up earlier. I developed this 5 a.m. club on the back of reading Robin Sharma's book, and Wake Up Early truly transformed my life. And I just followed the thread of what people wanted to learn from me and how I could serve and how I could help. And I didn't overthink. I just got into service, made offers, and trusted, really.
I think that's really interesting that helping men wake up early is kind of where your first program niche started to emerge. And it brings me back to something that you taught me that has always stuck with me, which is become the person that others want to follow. And I imagine that you were already doing this at the time. You were living and being in a certain way in your life, and it naturally and magnetically attracted people towards you that wanted to learn how to be that person too. Was that something that happened, or was, this Robin Sharma guy's got a thing going, let me package it up and make a program?
Yeah, it was, the total opposite. It was interesting. Before the 5 a.m. club, my business was struggling. It was doing okay and nothing was really landing. And I realized I was walking, listening to Alex Hormozy, and he said something like, the reason why you think you're an imposter is because you are. You're teaching things that you haven't embodied. You're teaching things that you're learning. You're translating. You're not sharing a transformation you've been through. And it landed in me because I was teaching things that I hadn't embodied. I was teaching things that I was learning but not living. And I came up with this philosophy of learn it, live it, give it. And I asked myself at that time, what were the things that I was truly living that genuinely transformed my life? And by a long shot, waking up at 5 a.m., which by then I'd probably done for 4 years, maybe a bit longer, had truly transformed my life. But it felt impossible to build a business on the back of that, like helping people wake up earlier. But I trusted it. And the more I spoke about it, the more people reached out, and it then became the stepping stone. It became the Trojan horse because I could speak with such authority, such conviction. And I believe that sales is a transfer of conviction. When you have an embodied transmission, it lands differently than when it's a translation.
Absolutely.
And yeah, that's all I had at the time. Was I woke up at 5 a.m. 99% of days, and it genuinely transformed my life. And I truly believe that if others did the same, it would transform theirs.
I'm curious, just because since we've talked about it, I'm sure others will be curious as well. What is it about that shift that was so transformative and powerful? I mean, other than getting back maybe a couple more hours out of your day.
Yeah. So prior to wake up at 5 a.m., I snoozed for hours. I was like a professional snoozer. And every time I snoozed, I woke up reactive. I woke up feeling lethargic, questioning, overthinking things, jumping to food I didn't want to eat, not exercising. I had no discipline. And wake up at 5 a.m. was the Trojan horse. It was the lead domino that led to everything else. That I think in the book, The Power of Habit, he calls it the Keystone habit, that once you dial one thing in, everything else falls into place.
Yep.
Because wake up at 5 a.m., it forces you to go to bed earlier.
Right.
Going to bed earlier leads to better sleep. Waking up earlier, you've now got, I now swapped 2 hours, 3 hours to work on myself, which I was essentially swapping 3 hours of Netflix with 3 hours of exercise, meditation, reading, working, building, creating. And if I do the maths, it's likely a year or two extra that I've created in the last, probably even more, in the last 7 or 8 years. And so much of life is, I believe, just small incremental changes over time. Lao Tzu says, again, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. When you add up all these little single steps, that's what truly leads to transformation. I don't believe I'm anything special or anything unique. I'm like everyone else, but I've stuck to something and committed to it consistently over time. And when you look at it on, it's simple. It's easy.
Yeah.
So,
I really can see that, cornerstone habit coming out of this now, because I think there's a lot of skepticism and even openly negative talk I see on social media about people who live this disciplined, hustle culture lifestyle of wake up early, go take a cold plunge, go do yoga and run and this and that. And people are almost openly mocking it now and being like, oh yeah, do all these, to be a successful founder and have $1 billion exit, you need to do all this stuff. And it's all complete waste of time and nonsense. And, it's just feeding somebody's consulting business or coaching business or whatever. And I think that's oversimplified thinking, first of all, but what you just articulated nails it. It's not even waking up at 5 a.m. that is the magic key. It's committing to a practice of discipline, committing to something that creates a almost ripple effect into your way of being.
Totally. I think it's convenient. And because it's not mutual, right? It's not, it doesn't mean one means the other. But I think, especially in the spiritual community, this sort of idea of going with the flow and surrender and moving like water. And for me, it's often bypassing like the real work of discipline. I think structure creates the container for the Tao, like for life to flow through you. And it's why, I often go to our local monastery at 5 a.m. and meditate for an hour every morning with them. And there's a reason for this. There's a reason rivers have structure. Without structure, water's a puddle. It has no movement. It has no flow. There's no energy into it. So it's the structure that creates our usefulness. And I know for myself, without any structure, there's no energy, there's no flow, it stagnate. And I become reactive. And reactive is very different to going with the flow. And I think sometimes a lot of people confuse going with the flow with being reactive or not in alignment with being reactive. And I think structure and discipline is what allows me to really tune into my truth, like my deeper truth. Because my consciousness between 5 and 7 a.m. is very different for the rest of the day because there's no noise.
Right.
Rumi said it. Rumi said, there's a quote that I've forgotten.
It's okay.
Which essentially says, if you wake up at the dawn, get up, listen. That's when you're closest to the God, the Tao, is in those times. So Do you have to wake up at 5 a.m. to be successful? Absolutely not.
No.
Do I believe it increases your chances? Yes.
Yeah. I think a lot about coming back to this idea of alignment. There are aligned ways with each person to create habits that work best for them. And underneath them is something that works especially well. Mm-hmm. And it's not always the actual act or the same thing that others are doing. But the structure underneath it is actually the thing that clicks. Mm-hmm. So, like you said, you don't have to wake up at 5 a.m. every day. Maybe your physiology isn't wired to work as well in that period of time. Mm-hmm. But what is your equivalent of waking up at 5 a.m.? What is the practice that you're going to commit to that brings a shift, that brings a conscious discipline to what you do? Mm-hmm. Right. And it may be for you, it may be waking up at 5 a.m. and going for a run. For somebody else, it might be waking up at 5 a.m. and sitting in silence. Mm-hmm. For another person, it may be writing and journaling. It may be going into a cold bath. For another person, it may be going into a sauna. It's just, what is how do you shift out of just drifting in the world and in your life to saying, I'm going to consciously move myself towards something? And it also comes back to the story of chop wood, carry water. You know this one, right? All right. What do you do once you achieve it? To achieve enlightenment, you chop wood and carry water. What do you do once you achieve enlightenment? You still chop wood and carry water. Mm-hmm. That story has such power to it because it's the same answer. Mm-hmm. It's the Alex Hormozy thing. It's you get up and do the same things over and over again for the rest of your life, and that's the secret to success. The path to enlightenment is chopping wood and carrying water. Right. It's that shift that you teach people through the 5 a.m. wake up that I think is equally powerful. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes people get hung up on the action. Oh, this action isn't for me. I'm not a morning person. They have a narrative. Oh, I'm not a meditative person. I'm not a reader. I'm not a runner. But what they're missing out on is whenever somebody tells me that, I tell them, okay, that's fine. What are you then? What are you going to commit to that sits underneath that's going to create that pattern of forward movement?
Totally. Paul Graham says the more labels we give ourselves, the stupider they make us. Mm-hmm. And labels are comfortable. They keep us protected. They keep us safe. I'm on the mindset of just destroying all labels, creating who I want to become, like becoming who I want to become. And I think I only do that in seeking discomfort, honoring boredom. I think we're so overstimulated that we are lost in chasing things and the magic bullet. And so much of life is about just honoring the boredom. Like I say to my wife quite a lot, life's mundane, isn't it? We all wake up the same day, same time every day. The kids come home. It's like, that's where the magic is.
That is.
And my pattern has always been living in the future, creating what's next. And that's kind of conditioning, but also I think just part of who I am. And my current challenge, what I'm really learning to do, falling in love with the mundane, like the magic is in the mundane. And that's a concept taken from Buddhism, is actually enjoying the mundane, because that's what life's mostly made up of, is the mundane. The peak experiences are great, but they're so few and far between.
That's right.
How are you in boredom?
Yeah. It's easy to think about how you are in action. It's easy to think about how you are in engagement, in forward momentum. It's really hard to think about how you are in sitting still, in standing still. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I fully understand that. So now that you've stepped into this person and you've become, the calling that you felt was there for you as a coach, and you've gone now, you've been doing this for 4 or 5 years now? Mm-hmm. Yeah. How's that journey shifted for you? I mean, I met you through my work with you and in coaching coaches, Do you still do that? Do you still want to do that? Do you see your work changing or evolving as a coach? What's the journey been so far after you sort of move past doing men's work?
Yeah, so I did men's work for about 2 years, and I'll be honest, I still doubted myself. There's a lot of proving energy, but there was a lot of self-doubt. I was approached by a business to be the managing director of it was a big 7-figure coaching business that coached other coaches, and I was still lacking belief, and I kind of got enamored with the business and thought I'll do that. Stepped into that business for 6 months, didn't feel aligned. So after 6 months, stepped away from a very, good salary and had a choice at that moment. Do I go back into do I go back into men's coaching or stay helping coaches? I set myself a little test, and I kind of have made a decision in life to just follow what's easy, to follow the flow. And it's why we're living in Portugal. It's how we moved to Madeira 4 years ago. And I put out, action. And a mentor once said to me, spirit meets you at the point of action. And I took action in both directions towards men's coaching and towards this business world. And everything flowed with business coaching. I got to 10K months within 2 months, and everything kind of flowed from there. So I'm really following that flow and following what feels easy and what's flowing for me. So I've been doing that now for, I think, just under 3 years. I've built a community called the Elevated Coaching Collective, a community of heart-led coaches. We've grown that to 50. I have ambitions to grow that to hundreds. And the bigger purpose there is to develop heart-led leaders that are leading with their heart and help awaken them to who they are with systems, with coaching, with holding up a mirror. And that is at least what I'm meant to do right now. Whether that's my all-time thing, I don't know. It's what I'm committing the next at least 5 years to. I do sense a bigger mission inside of me. I sense wanting to help children, wanting to help boys, and being on a big stage. I really have had many visions of being on a big stage, and that is a vision that I'm working towards too.
The big stage is, the vision there is being able to impact and reach more people, I would assume. Yeah. Makes sense. Yeah. What you do in teaching people how to build businesses to help others, essentially, how to actually build a financially viable coaching business. This is something that is, of course, there's a dime a dozen of them out there. They're all over the place. Loads of people trying to coach coaches. What do you do that brings a different approach to that world of, there's people out there with all sorts of books and playbooks, and the distinction I heard was heart-led, that heart-led piece, and combining that consciousness with the tools and systems and the playbooks and, all those things. They sort of have to go together, don't they?
Yeah. So I studied as a mechanical engineer at university.
Yeah.
So I have a very engineer mind. I see systems. I can break and reverse engineer things really clearly in my mind. But I'm also deeply embodied. I'm an embodiment coach. I have a deep connection to my body, and I believe my uniqueness is in combining the two. What you tend to see is more masculine systems, strategy coaches, or the more feminine manifestation, go with the flow. And I'm here to sort of combine both, because we need both. We need the structure and we need the flow. We need the discipline and we need the allowing. They're not separate. And that is I believe my uniqueness is in combining both of those.
Yeah. I think it's very you. Knowing you as a person and having gotten to know you a bit, you carry both the masculine and the feminine energy with you. You carry both the deep sensitivity and the big heart, as well as the mind for the mechanics of it all and the systems thinking and how things go together. And you bring that very action-orientated approach to life of what are we going to do next? What's the next plan? What's the next experiment? What's the next thing? And that's not so much as a testimonial to how you work as it is an observation of alignment in you and sort of how your steeper path is playing out. If I look back at the story you've shared today, it's like starting from being a rugby player, moving your way into business, following the path that everyone told you is the path to happiness. You know, if you do all these things, it'll all turn out great. And by all means, you probably should still be, you know, on that trajectory had you not had a few things change for you and shift for you. And those things that shifted brought you closer to you. And I can't help but believe that you are going to be all of the visions of success you have for yourself. And it may not just be monetary success, but the fact that you're living where you want to live, the fact that you are able to live a balanced life with your personal passions and being able to be physically active the way you want, to live in a place you feel aligned to be with your family with as much time as you're able to without having to go into an office. You are crafting an aligned life, and it's not been easy. It's been filled and will be continue to be filled with bumps and challenges. Would you do it any differently?
No, there's no other choice. I actually see a real benefit. I have a very simple mind and I see things very simply. I've decided. So I've cut off all options. Yeah. So there's no point.
No going back.
There's no going back. There's no point worrying, complaining, doubting, second guessing. There's no point because there's no other choice. I've signed up for this. And I either learn to love it or run away. But again, that's not a choice. Alan Watts says, anxiety and laughter are two sides of the same coin. And I'm choosing to laugh through this. I'm choosing to dance through this. I'm choosing to step forward into the annihilation. Like life has annihilated me, and it will annihilate you. It will annihilate all of us. It will continue to break our ego, our self-importance. It will continue to break all of that down. And I'm just deciding to step forward, open heart, with a smile on my face, ready, annihilate me. Because it's in that annihilation that we discover like the infinite part of us that is indestructible, that is non-changing, the part of us that's simply the awareness, consciousness. And we don't get to that if we don't lean into this exposure. We don't get to that because we protect ourselves with all these stories of blame and blah, blah, blah. It's like, I'm here to live open-hearted and I have signed up for it, and it is fucking wild and challenging, and there's times I've wanted to give in and run away, and not to diminish it. It's been fucking hard. Genuinely really hard.
I can see it, and I can also see how you have no other choice. It chose you in many ways.
Totally.
It chose you. Simple. And you're forever changed because of it, and you can't undo the person you've become. You can never go back to the formula again, to an office, and you'll always find a way to walk your path now.
Totally.
Because it's chosen you.
Totally. I had a acupuncture session recently. I saw this triangle that says the Tao leads you to the Tao when you're lost from the Tao. What that means is the way leads you to the way when you're lost from the way. So there is only one way. We'll get there whether we know we're on the way or not. We're on the way. So relax. I think so much of this just comes down to relax. Just relax. Breathe.
Yeah.
Smile.
That's the challenge, man. Every morning, especially when you're wired to do or to take action. Right. And there's that duality of, doing without holding on to an outcome from the doing, right? Mm-hmm. And learning to relax in the doing. Totally. And, I know you fall victim to it. I know I fall victim to it. Every week I catch myself in sort of, all day we teach people things about how to be and how to live, and ask questions and see epiphanies happen for people. And then I catch myself in the exact same moments. Mm-hmm. It's a constant process of learning. It's okay, if I don't do this, I will not put myself in a situation where a possibility can happen. And if I do it and I expect the possibility to happen, then I get wrapped around my own axle.
Mm-hmm.
It's a constant fight.
100%.
Yeah. No, man, this is great. Thank you so much for sharing it. If there's anything you could say to anybody out there who, is standing at the fork in the road on their own path, what lesson or what things have you changed your mind about in your life that you used to believe would you want to share with them?
The thing that I've changed my mind about is it gets to be easy. It gets to be easy. Mm-hmm. The advice I would give is lean in with a smile. I think Denzel Washington said it, fail forward. It's corny as heck, but fail forward. It's true. Lean in. It's wherever the resistance is, like that's the path. Mm-hmm. Whatever you're avoiding, that's the thing to do. And when you learn that actually the resistance is the path, like everything becomes so easy and so simple. It's just a question of, do I do it or not? And if I don't do it, that's also okay. It's all okay.
It's all okay.
It's all okay. So what are you going to do?
Mm-hmm. It's all okay, and you'll know when your time is your time.
Right.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thanks, man. Thank you so much for spending time with me, sharing your story, sharing it with others. I think there's so much to learn from your path. And, I'm personally grateful for everything you've taught me over the years and for your friendship. And I hope that something comes out of this conversation that will send somebody searching in a new direction.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I nothing happens by chance. And there's a lot of things that I picked up from you, in particular the book, Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. That was a book that shifted a lot for me, that really taught me humility. Humility is something I've always struggled with. And I now see why it is one of the top 3 qualities to have. Humility, the willingness to just be humble to your knees. That's where the learning is. And yeah, I'm forever grateful for it, because that book taught me just the importance of how are you sitting?
Yes.
How are you breathing? Like, why are we talking about anything else apart from that? Why are we talking about strategy and systems and blah? How are you sitting?
How are you sitting?
How are you breathing? And again, so thank you for introducing to me that book and for who you are as well.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. I'm glad you read it, and we never had a chance to talk about it, but it's a heck of a read. It's a hard read, right. And it's also a profound, incredibly profound book. And Zen, like the Tao, is one of these wisdom sources that you can spend your whole life immersed in and still only understand 10% of it. But that book is such an awesome book from that perspective.
Totally.
Yeah. No, awesome, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The steeper path, the climb I choose, leaving comfort, nothing to lose. Through shadow trails and rocky ground, my purpose clear, my meaning found. Each step I take brings strength anew. Challenges faced, resilience grew. A journey tough, but richly sweet, where soul and life's alignment meet. At peaks ahead, the vision clear, my greatest goals becoming near. The steeper path, though hard and slow, is where my truest self will grow. The steeper path.